Hey everyone, welcome. I'm going to give it just a minute as I see everyone is filing onto the webinar right now. Hey everyone, we'll get started in just a second. I'm going to give it a minute as I see everyone is joining. Hey everyone, welcome. All right. We are going to get started. Hey there, thank you for joining us today for our webinar, Level Up Your Online Store with Premium Checkout. My name is Theresa Donahue, Brand Engagement Marketing Manager here at Volusion, and I'm super excited to have our Client Success Manager co-hosting the webinar with me today, Kevin Stein. Hey Kevin, thanks so much for being here today.
Yeah, thanks Theresa, and thanks for everybody for joining, and I'm looking forward to kicking this demo off.
Awesome. We have some really valuable information to share with you all around how to decrease shopping cart abandonment through utilizing our checkout solution, Premium Checkout. And even if you're a merchant who already has Premium Checkout on your online store, you can benefit from watching today's webinar, as Kevin will go into detail and more of the specifics of Premium Checkout and how you can use it to your full advantage. Before we dive in, I have just a few housekeeping reminders. You can submit any questions you have at any time during the webinar in the question section on the right-hand side of your screen. We will have some time at the end of the webinar to answer a few of your questions in real time. Also, in the handout section, we have attached 2 downloadable resources that you may find helpful. The first is a case study highlighting one of our very own Volusion merchants and his experience with Premium Checkout on his online store. So be sure to check that one out. It's a great success story. Also, we attached a downloadable document answering our most frequently asked questions around Premium Checkout. As always, you will receive a link to the recording of today's webinar in your email tomorrow afternoon with any answers to any questions we weren't able to get to today. All right, so let's get into it. The first topic on our agenda is one of the most pressing questions you probably ask yourself as a store owner. Why do my customers abandon their carts? Kevin, I'm sure there's not just one answer to this question, but many different reasons why customers fill their carts and then essentially ghost and never actually complete the purchase or the checkout process. But what do you find to be the most common reasons as to why customers leave their carts?
Thanks, Theresa, and yeah, to be honest, that's kind of the million-dollar question, right? I mean, there's many variables that goes into why customers abandon carts, and I wish there was an easy answer that would cover all of them. But ultimately, what we can do is, although we can't get ahead of every situation, there's a few high-level items that we can really focus on, because obviously, nobody likes to see abandoned carts. They have feelings too, and we want to make sure that people can process their orders appropriately. So a few items to highlight here. That kind of goes into why carts get abandoned to begin with. A poor user experience. This can lead to a more complicated or time-consuming checkout. You can see here on this slide, there's a screenshot of an older checkout. It's not as responsive, and so I'm sure you can tell it's just not an ideal format for a checkout. There's a lack in payment methods. It can look unprofessional compared to modern checkouts and just the overall modern expectation of what customers are looking for. And there can also be a lot of security concerns. As mentioned, this example is an outdated checkout. To be honest, this is probably a theme that is a couple decades old at least. And so it's not as responsive. I was probably in first grade when this theme was more cutting edge, but in this day and age, customers have different expectations for what the shopping experience should entail. And so these are really, again, the high level items that really go into an ideal shopping experience. So if you want to move on to the next slide, please, Theresa.
That all makes sense. And I know from personal experience, if I'm online shopping and the checkout process is time consuming, I'm much more likely to leave it with the mentality of, oh, I'll come back to it later. But as we all know, that's not always the case, and you don't always come back to it. So, and also, like you mentioned with the, older outdated web pages, if I see that the checkout page looks a little outdated, it makes me nervous about my personal information staying secure. So that kind of wraps into the security concerns as well. So,
Right.
yeah, definitely know what you mean there.
There are, I mean, I'd say the security concerns are the most pivotal. I mean, in this day and age, it's the amount of scammers that are out there, online scammers, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry by itself. And so, now it's more important than ever to make sure that your checkout experience is built on modern technology, modern infrastructure, and also has the needs of a modern shopper in mind. So all important.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's move on to the solution for this issue, how to decrease shopping cart abandonment. Kevin, what are your suggestions for improving the checkout experience and converting those customer shopping carts into sales?
Absolutely. And so again, there's not a single magical solution in a perfect world. I would say, it'd be great to have one solution that kind of fits all the needs of customers and that avoids abandoned carts. But unfortunately, we don't live in a perfect world. So, but probably the most straightforward answer to that is to provide an easy checkout experience, something that looks good and feels good and works good. And it's kind of like that old Geico saying, it's so easy a caveman can do it. You can kind of apply that logic to multiple things, and a checkout experience it definitely can fall into that logic as well. So first and foremost, a better checkout flow, something that is more conducive to modern shoppers and reduces any kind of unnecessary clicks that can slow down the checkout process. Getting ahead of certain user errors like missing fields, being able to flag those missing fields and highlight them for shoppers, and so they see, hey, I'm missing my address or my CVV or things like that. Address verification, that's a very big one. I'm sure a lot of customers, I'm sure I speak for a lot of customers when I say that errors happen on the address submission area. So being able to verify addresses on the checkout is pivotal in preventing those kind of issues from taking place. One-click checkout capabilities, that's kind of the modern thing now when it comes to shoppers in this day and age. For repeat shoppers, it's important now more than ever to have an easier checkout process that really just speeds that whole process up. Having a responsive theme, we showed an example of an unresponsive theme in one of the previous slides. That's important because today, with all the devices out there, mobile devices, desktops, and everything in between, we want to provide that kind of flexibility to make sure all your shoppers can go through the checkout properly. And then just having a professional display. As mentioned, something that looks good and feels good and works good, that all plays a big role into establishing that confidence for the modern shopper and letting them know, like, hey, this is a legitimate website. I have no concerns, and it's just an easier process for them in general.
Yeah, I 100% agree with all of those tips and suggestions there. I think the professional looking web page and the one-click checkout capabilities go a long way with today's shoppers. So thanks so much for going over those. So now that we're aware of what causes shopping cart abandonment and ways to improve the checkout experience, let's talk about premium checkout. Kevin, could you give us a high-level overview of premium checkout for our merchants who aren't familiar with it, and then also share some of the features and benefits of this powerful checkout solution?
Absolutely. And then just to kind of state first and foremost, premium checkout, I mean, it is designed to provide a more secure checkout experience while also enhancing that customer journey. And so these are just some of the major items that were addressed when creating premium checkout and how it's been developed over time. The product team, they conducted a lot of research into how modern shoppers shop, what their habits and behaviors are, what kind of common errors take place on the checkout. And so all of this research was molded together to create premium checkout. Things like, a better user experience flow that requires, less steps, redundant steps even that can be taken out of the process as a whole. Flagging and clear messaging, I'm sure we've all been there where we try to place an order and something doesn't work and we're not sure, are we missing a field or, whatnot, things like that. Google Tag Manager, that opens up a whole world of possibilities now, and it's a pivotal tool when it comes to just e-commerce sites in general, as well as the checkout. PayPal checkout, that's kind of the modern PayPal integration. And PayPal, I'm sure people have heard that PayPal is consolidating some of their products and they're moving merchants onto PayPal checkout, which is their modern, latest, most secure payment plugin. Address verification, I mentioned that already, where a lot of user mistakes can take place on the address. So being able to verify that kind of information is important, saves a lot of headaches down the road. One-click checkout capabilities for your repeat customers, people that shop on your site a lot. We don't want to give them any kind of extra steps, any unnecessary steps to go through. It's better to just give them the easiest process in the world and just have to confirm the information and place the order. And that also leads into reducing the amount of steps needed to place an order in general. And then also retaining customer information for customers returning to a shopping cart. We've all been there. I know I can speak for myself where I've placed all these items in a shopping cart. I've gone through most of the checkout experience, and then for whatever reason I drop out of the cart. And it's always nice when you return to that cart, a few days later or even a week later, and you see all your products are still there, all of your, all the information that you filled out is still there. And so it just reduces a lot of headaches on that end. I'm sure a lot of merchants, they send out retention emails for those abandoned carts, and this just makes the process a whole lot easier for your customers. And so they don't really have to go through many steps to complete that order.
Awesome. That all sounds great.
And these are just some additional add-on benefits of premium checkout. I'm sure many merchants have heard of our new Element Site Designer feature. It is compatible with premium checkout, and ultimately for our merchants that adopt premium checkout, they'll be eligible to adopt the Element Site Designer as well. I don't want to spend too much time on that because Element, that could be a whole webinar by itself, and I'm sure we'll have future webinars on that. But an additional benefit is our new VPay powered by Stripe integration and the kind of features that entails, things like Affirm, Apple Pay, Google Pay, Klarna. There's so many different kind of payment options out there now, and so when it comes to adding that flexibility to the checkout, it's something that a lot of customers look for in that overall checkout experience. So and there's plenty of new things on the horizon as we speak, so pretty exciting times we're living in.
Awesome. Yeah, I know the variety of payment options is really important when it comes to the user experience. And actually, in an article I read recently, a research study done in the US found that 67% of consumers will abandon their e-commerce purchase if their preferred payment method isn't available. So the fact that premium checkout allows this wide range of payment options is super important in the e-commerce space.
Right, absolutely. And so it looks like we're diving into more of the interface of premium checkout. I'm sure a lot of merchants are probably saying right now, like, hey Kevin, talk is cheap, abandoned carts are expensive, and they want to see how it actually looks and feels in the overall format of premium checkout, because all this stuff, I'm sure it sounds good, but how does it apply to the actual checkout? And so here you can see these two interfaces. These are just screenshots of the overall experience that a customer will see when they land on the checkout page. You can see all the necessary fields are there, shipping address, all that, nothing too crazy on that end, but you can see the overall look and the feel is different from the one-page checkout you're probably used to. things like the flexibility with payment options, how those are more plug and play type of integrations now. You can allow for that kind of flexibility and you don't have to customize that into the checkout. It's kind of like a flip of a switch type of situation. On the right there, the mobile interface, you can see that it's a responsive interface. In this day and age, more customers are starting to shop through their mobile devices. I know of a lot of more industrial merchants in the construction industry. They deal with a lot of customers that are actually, they're on the road. They're just trying to order things through their phone as efficiently as possible. And having that mobile-friendly type of experience does go a long way. In fact, in the case study that Theresa mentioned, that was one of our merchants that was an early adopter of premium checkout. They noticed around a 50% increase in their online transactions versus customers calling in and placing an order over the phone. And so think of how much time that actually frees up for the merchant. They don't have to answer the phone. They can devote that time to other areas of their business and of their operations. So there is a lot of benefit in that. And you can also see in this example, the flagging of the missing fields, premium checkout. If there are fields that are missing, it'll redirect customers to those fields, and it just makes it very easy for them to spot the missing fields and add that information.
Yeah, great. That's awesome. Wow, 50% increase in sales, like you mentioned. That's incredible. And for anyone that just joined the webinar or joined a couple minutes late, that case study that Kevin just mentioned, it's actually available as a downloadable resource in the handout section of this webinar. So you can download that now, or we'll also send it out tomorrow in the follow-up email. So let's just keep moving here.
Right, and one thing I would like to add is that a lot of what went into that feedback from the merchant, seeing those kind of results, those are the kind of results that we anticipate. Obviously, we can't always guarantee that every merchant is going to see those kind of results, but when it came to the construction of premium checkout and how we developed it, we did anticipate these kind of results to occur, assuming that we constructed premium checkout to align with what the modern shopper's expectations are. So moving into this slide, these are some of the highlights I wanted to make about premium checkout. The sticky cart option, it sounds like a very minuscule detail, but believe it or not, sometimes customers, they'll drop out of a cart for something as simple as not knowing if they have the right item, the right variant, the right quantity. They might have some hesitations, and if they can't see that on the checkout, if it causes even a little bit of doubt, it could cause them to bounce out of the checkout. So something as simple as having this sticky cart follow them through the checkout experience, it kind of reassures them and instills that confidence, like, yes, this is the right item. There's no doubt about it there. And you can also edit those carts on the checkout. They don't have to leave the checkout. They can add the quantity or subtract the quantity or delete items altogether. And so last thing we want is for customers to have to leave the checkout at all. And the sticky cart is definitely a way of getting ahead of that. In addition, we kind of mentioned the multiple payment options, and there's a lot of them out there. This is just an example of all the plugin options, or some of the plugin options you can implement into premium checkout, PayPal, Venmo, and whatnot. So just it goes into the logic of adding more flexibility for your customers and different payment options on that end. And then address verification. Can't say it enough. That tends to be a leading cause of user error, is simply putting in the wrong address. And so the way the address verification works, it actually integrates with the USPS address database, and so it's definitely a very extensive database, and it makes sure that any address that's plugged in, it verifies it, and it still gives customers the opportunity to use that address. If it's a legitimate address, it won't flag it at all, but it's just a good extra layer of security and a good extra layer to prevent any kind of user error.
Yeah, that's great. That's awesome. Thanks so much for sharing all those wonderful features and the long list of benefits for premium checkout. And then, yeah, the one-click checkout capabilities. Like I said before, this goes a long way with today's shoppers. So did you just want to touch on this slide a little bit?
Absolutely, and yeah, one-click checkout capabilities is definitely a great way to help improve your chances of conversion. This is actually a legitimate order that I placed for a Volusion merchant that I shop with consistently. So if you're that merchant and you made it onto this webinar, thank you very much and congratulations. But ultimately, this is the one-click checkout format where you can see how it's very, very simple, very straightforward. A customer that's a repeat customer, they land on your page, they get to the checkout, all they have to do is verify this information and click the pay option. And so it's a very, very seamless process. And you can see where this is also editable on the pay screen. All the information, the address information, the credit card information, all of that is editable on the pay screen. And so they don't have to, your customers don't have to leave the checkout at all. And this similar process as far as editing those areas, it also exists on the regular process of checking out. So if a customer is checking out as a guest and they're on the pay screen, they don't have to leave the pay screen to edit this information. They can edit it all on the pay screen. And so again, it leads into that more conducive process for customers to follow. And again, we're keeping them on the shopping cart, which is the most important thing. We don't want to give them any reason to leave the shopping cart.
Awesome, great. Yeah, that's great. Thanks so much for that information, Kevin. Let's just keep the information flowing. For all of our merchant viewers out there that are interested in getting set up with Premium Checkout, what steps do they need to take to get started?
Right, so it's actually a very seamless process, and it can be, all these settings can be implemented in less than a minute, probably less than 30 seconds. And the way you activate Premium Checkout is simply by going to the settings dropdown and clicking Checkout. And then if you move on to the next slide, please, Theresa, you'll kind of see the next step in that process, where you'll see that button there, and you just, you activate it and you can deactivate it as much as you want. And so it's a very straightforward process of just flipping that switch. And by no means are you stuck with Premium Checkout if you activate it. If for whatever reason you do want to roll back that change, you can just click that checkbox and it'll roll everything back. But you can see there how it's very seamless, a very seamless process. And then on the next slide, you'll see what the merchant will see when they scroll down below that section. This is the more advanced settings section of that Premium Checkout page. You can see all the messaging there, the ship to screen, the delivery screen, etc. That's where merchants can add, different kinds of important messages. For example, I've heard, supply chain issues, things like that. Some merchants have utilized the ship to screen to mention to customers like, hey, there might be some delays. For example, you can also use these same fields to input HTML and add like clickable links. That's a little bit outside of my scope, but it is possible through those different messaging fields. And then below that, you can see where the address verification setting lives. And then below that, you also see where you can activate support for Google Tag Manager. And we'll get into some more of the details about Google Tag Manager. I'm sure merchants might have some questions on that, but ultimately that's the lay of the land, so to speak, when it comes to the checkout settings.
Awesome.
And then I believe on the next screen there, Theresa, this is one additional area under the settings tab. When you go to settings and click on the custom fields section, these are custom fields that live on the checkout screen. And so if you're a merchant that has any kind of custom fields, this is one area that you'll definitely want to check. You'll see in this column that's highlighted that says show on Premium Checkout. For any kind of custom fields that you have active on your current checkout, you'll just want to make sure that you go to your custom fields subcategory and activate those on the checkout. I know it shows 3 custom fields here, but there's many more custom fields that you can add onto the checkout. And those entail things like, different kind of required questions that customers need to answer and things like that.
Awesome, great. Thanks for going over those steps. I know that will be really helpful to our merchants wanting to get set up with Premium Checkout after this.
Absolutely, and we're always here to help. Our support teams are well versed in Premium Checkout, and if you have an account manager as well, we'll be able to help make sure everything is set up properly.
Yeah, awesome. Well, we are creeping up on time now. We have about 5 minutes left, but we did have a few additional add-on topics we wanted to cover because they do go hand in hand with premium checkout in terms of helping merchants elevate their online stores. Kevin, do you mind just like briefly touching on these two, one of them being Site Designer and the other one being the Google Tag Manager?
Absolutely. So I'm sure a lot of merchants have heard about Element Site Designer. It's a site designer feature that we rolled out a little over a year ago. And so for merchants that activate premium checkout, they'll be eligible to adopt Site Designer. And again, Site Designer deserves a whole webinar by itself, but ultimately it's a new style of designing the front end of your website using modern, cutting edge, just up-to-date technology. And the way it's been constructed is ultimately it's designed to improve site performance, improve load times, while also providing that ease and flexibility to adjust the front end that doesn't require extensive developer knowledge. I know the legacy Site Designer, it's often helpful to have that developer type of knowledge, but Element Site Designer allows for that flexibility without having that kind of knowledge. So there is a lot of added value in that. And then I believe if you go to the next slide, Theresa, there should be some information on Google Tag Manager that we can discuss. And so for everybody that's not familiar with Google Tag Manager, I'm sure most merchants are, but this is an advanced tool that allows you to add custom scripts and code to premium checkout. And the best thing of all, it's free. So no hidden fees, nothing like that. You can activate a Google Tag Manager account. And as mentioned, this gives you the ability to implement custom code. So theoretically, the sky is the limit when it comes to Google Tag Manager. You'll probably need a developer when it does come to more extensive and complicated types of third-party scripts and integrations in that sense. But even still, without that knowledge, there's still a number of things that you could plug into premium checkout through Google Tag Manager. These are some examples of that, things like additional tracking scripts. You can integrate with a live chat solution, an abandoned cart solution as well, Cart Stack. We're talking about abandoned carts. Cart Stack is a very important tool that can be utilized. And certain style adjustments. Again, Google Tag Manager, it's a pretty complex topic, and so there's probably an additional webinar that can be created for Google Tag Manager specifically, but these are just some of the high-level items.
That's awesome. Lots of custom options there. Thanks so much for going over those tools.
Absolutely.
So now we actually prepared frequently asked questions that we can answer, but since we have just a couple minutes here, Kevin, I'm going to let you go ahead and look at the questions section and choose maybe 1 to 2 questions to answer from our attendees today.
Absolutely, and I do see, it looks like there is one question. A merchant asked, where can I get more information on Element Site Designer? If you go to our website, volusion.com, there's actually a whole page devoted to Element Site Designer. And so I would encourage looking on our website. I believe it's actually on one of our, it's in our top navigation menu under the Site Designer section. Site Builder, I believe is what it's called. So I would encourage you to look at our website, but we will be sending out additional information and updates on Site Designer that we can expand upon that information.
Great, awesome. And actually, since we do only have a minute here left, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. But for any questions that we didn't get to today, we will get those answered and sent out in our follow-up email tomorrow. As well, we'll also attach the document that's in the handout section on this webinar today with the answers to these on the slide, the frequently asked questions. So we'll make sure to get you guys all that valuable information. To learn more about premium checkout, you can visit volusion.com/premium-checkout. And thank you guys so much for attending today. Just as a reminder, the recording of today's webinar will also be linked in the email tomorrow, and all of the resources that we included today. Kevin, thanks so much for sharing your knowledge and feedback with us all today.
Thanks, Theresa, and thank you everybody for joining. I hope you Have a great day.
Awesome. Thanks everyone for joining and for being a loyal Volusion customer. Have a good one. Bye.